morning, and welcome back to CityLine. With me, I have, Tacoma's Poet Laureate, Ms. Abby Murray. I was just talking to her during the break about that she is everywhere. She has brought such beautiful partnerships and collaborations and a point of view that is, I believe, refreshing and global to this Poet Laureate position in a way that we haven't experienced before. So please join me in saying a big hello to Miss Abby Murray. How are you, love?
I am so good, and I'm such a big fan of yours
as
well. So the sentiment goes across the couch as well.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that you and I had channeling the same hair today. It works for me.
I was going to have to talk to you about stealing my look.
Well, I'm sorry.
You're doing it better.
I want to be you when I grow up. So let's talk about Poet Laureate, because this is, to some people, it's like, I think that they're under a rock and didn't know we had a Poet Laureate. If you could, if you want, and I do want to ask, what does a Poet Laureate do, in case our viewers are not aware of what a Poet Laureate is?
Sure, yeah. A lot of big cities and states, and also our country, has a Poet Laureate. And a Poet Laureate is really just a poetry advocate, which means a lot of different things. You can be an advocate in a lot of different ways. So all Poet Laureates have different projects that they do. Some of them assemble anthologies and books. Some of them do community projects. So you are just poetry's biggest cheerleader.
And you are. You absolutely are. So what are some of the highlights of your first 8 months as our Poet Laureate?
I have been really busy
Yes.
past 8 months, and I think the best part has definitely been the workshops that I've been able to teach in the community. I got to teach workshops this summer on JBLM and also at the Eastside Community Center.
Oh.
And anytime that I get to make space for poetry for people, I mean, anyone who's taken a workshop with me knows it's talking about poetry and making space for poetry and making space for our voices, and plus I always bake something. So
there we go. So
fabulous.
So spoken word, writing, talking out loud, and food. Is that just like the perfect
it's a pretty
triad,
much perfect
maybe?
recipe.
Yeah, there it is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm dying to know, what are you writing lately?
I have been writing, I write often, which is surprising. I have to sneak it into my day. But I've been writing a lot lately about Tacoma, shockingly.
Will you share something with us?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
I have a poem here. This is called Reasons to Love Us, and I want to do a little plug for Grit City Magazine, because this is going to be in their print issue, which I think they're going to have available at the end of this month at the night market. So
Go, Abby.
this is Reasons to Love Us. There are more violins on this earth than diseases. There are more cures than cancers, more chapter books than dictators. In Tacoma, big leaf maples touch bruised air with golden hands. Children outnumber prison guards. Gardens exceed lumber mills, and every day a song is sung by a throat that also knows how to groan. In the hospital on J Street, people hold hands and wait for what a poem can't heal to surrender or shrink. And outside, we do the same. We take pictures, buy dog treats, and make beds until the news trudges forward from among us, dragging its club. The world refuses to hide its maples, its violins and throats. All this within sight. Reasons to love us. I've written them down so I can hold them against my pain later, like ice.
This is why you are so impactful as our Poet Laureate.
Oh, thank you.
That is incredibly beautiful. You talked about a book release when you were here, and several launches gone. You have a book of poems called Hail and Farewell, and it came out in September.
Yeah.
How do we get our hands on this treasure?
King's
Okay.
has a couple of copies left. I think you need to bring some more in there. You can get them through Perugia Press.
Okay.
And you can get them from me if you see me around town.
Hit you up for a book.
I know. Where's your book?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's been really, really exciting.
Wow, Abby, that's impressive. So one of the things I love about your poetry is that it covers all bases in my heart. And so I want to ask you, in this time of chaos, how do you describe poetry or poetry in the midst of burnout? Because chaos and burnout are two words that I identify, that I think I'm feeling, and our community sometimes feels.
Absolutely. Yeah. Poetry is the condensation of thought. It takes our thought, our voices, our experiences, our truths, and condenses them. And it's easy for me to think of a condensation as a sort of anchor. And our relationship to poetry is that tether to our voices. It's a tether to who we are. We know who we are, especially when we write poetry. I believe everyone's a poet, so no one really comes up and says, oh, I'm not a poet. And I'm like, we'll see. So everyone is, and by writing poetry, that is really how we tether ourselves to who we are and how we care about people.
I love that you use that word condensation, because anything that is condensed in its truest form can have something added to it, and it's more of. And I think that's a beautiful visual.
Absolutely.
Abby, how do you keep writing throughout the year in terms of your process?
It's messy, and I'm here to really, I want to advocate for the people who are like, I don't have time to sit down at my computer for 4 hours and write. Neither do I. So I always have poetry around me. I roll paper around my ballpoint pens when I go to functions. And so I'm always sneaking, writing a poem. I have a deadline for myself that I lie to myself and say, I have to meet it by Friday at midnight. I have to write a poem every week. And I just remember that this is something that I love to do, and the poems come immediately. So sneak them in wherever you can. You can sneak them in to your ballpoint pens. You can sneak them in on your napkins.
I love
It's everywhere.
that. Let's talk about, and you make it sound so easy, are you still collaborating with the Tacoma Refugee Choir?
I am, yeah.
I love them.
Yeah, they're really, really wonderful.
They
I
are.
love Aaron Gwinnett.
Yes.
And they just performed their holiday favorites with Symphony Tacoma. They performed my poem Moon Song. It was a completely out-of-body, surreal experience. It made me miss my violin. I need to get that out and play that more. And the Refugee Choir has been an inspiration for me in terms of seeing the community that you have and seeing the art that is there and making space for it.
Oh, beautiful. And the violin is one of my favorite instruments. Yeah. When Sarah was here, Maestro Sarah Ioannidis, she and Karina, their executive director, handed me a violin and kind of taught me a little bit, because I just love violins.
Yeah.
Last question for you, love. What do you have planned for 2020 in terms of poetry for Tacoma?
I'm going to be offering more workshops as usual. I always, every city that we've moved to, I find a place. I'm getting really good at walking into random places and saying, can I use your meeting space to teach poetry here? And so I'm used to people looking at me like I have antlers. And so more workshops. I'm doing more readings as well, but I'll also be releasing an anthology of poetry written by undocumented youth who have been detained here in our area.
Oh my gosh, you are amazing. So tell our viewers, where can we find more of your poems?
On my website, I have, if you're just curious to see what I'm writing and publishing, I have a list of live links to poems on online journals and stuff that have been published. So you can find those there, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. It's mostly pictures of my pets. But I also want to say a plug too. I almost forgot. Tomorrow, I'm doing a gift-giving workshop, poetry workshop at the Moore branch of Tacoma Public Libraries. And it's 4 to 6.
Okay, we have a minute left. Can you give us one more minute of your work? 'Cause
I can.
I live for your poems.
This is Breakfast with Santa. Santa arrives at the Chemical Bay on Joint Base Lewis McChord in a Stryker, 8 a.m. sharp on Saturday. Colonel's orders, free of charge. Santa has an Alabama twang when he says he'd like to make a quick announcement, his voice ringing in rented speakers that broadcast Christmas carols as well as the pale whistle of some far-off interference. Santa wants to say he's thankful, not just for the men who took time from their training schedules to eat pancakes with us this morning, but the families too, who go through what they go through. And I imagine for Santa, sacrifice is something like climbing through a keyhole or slipping between a door jamb. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes and takes and takes. Horror and bitterness are naughty spirits within us. Acceptance is nice. The children wear paper crowns with antlers shaped like their own hands until a sergeant distributes gas masks by the bouncy house. The wives aren't hungry. They're never hungry. There are enough pancakes to feed a landfill, enough coffee to thaw a block of sidewalks. I have crept so far into myself I can hardly see my own front line, but I am certain both hemispheres of my brain are begging for peace. Santa wants us to form a line. We do. Friends, I can still be saved. My heart is open as a coal mine.
Abby Murray, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. When we come back, Raising Girls will be in the house. You don't want to miss that. We'll be right back.